Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to this fresh, insightful episode of HR Voices. On this show, we gather opinions and insights from national and international corporate leaders on the current issues and topics that are shaping the HR landscape. Today, we have a very special guest with us from Novo Nordisk. Novo Nordisk is a leading global healthcare company striving to bring change by defeating serious chronic health conditions, especially diabetes. Novo Nordisk employs more than 66,000 people in 80 countries and markets its products in around 170 countries across the globe. Our guest today is Mr. John Dawber. Mr. Dawber is the Corporate Vice President and MD and leading the Global Business Service Center at Novo Nordisk in Bangalore. With nearly 3 decades of career in the pharmaceutical industry, John is driven by a passion for success through people and people development. He is also a strong proponent of employee experience and engagement at the workplaces. Under his leadership, Novo Nordisk GBS has reduced rolling annual attrition significantly, and Novo Nordisk was ranked #1 best place to work in India across all sectors and all sizes of companies, and was ranked among the top 25 workplaces for career growth by LinkedIn. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much, and it's an absolute
How are
privilege.
you feeling today?
I'm feeling very excited and a real privilege to speak with you today. And thank you for a beautiful introduction. Makes me very proud.
It's our pleasure to have you with us today. John, let's talk about technology first of all. How do you think has technology changed the overall management and processes in large organizations? Specifically, tell us about Novo Nordisk, the technology inclusion at Novo Nordisk.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right. I mean, it's technology has really revolutionized everything we do in an organization such as ours. If I focus just for a minute on some of the people-related, the HR kind of activities where technology is embraced. In our GBS or GCC organization, we have about 4,500 employees here in Bangalore. Now, over the last couple of years, we've been hiring quite extensively. We hired about 1,000 people, maybe a little over 1,000 people last year. But in order to hire those 1,000 or 1,200 people, we processed just less than 200,000 job applications. And so the first use of technology is to be able to process those applicants in a professional, efficient, and Novo Nordisk way methodology before they even join the company. So we're using AI and technology to be able to filter those CVs, to be able to read those applications, and to be able to shortlist for our recruitment partners and our hiring managers. Then when we start the onboarding process, again, we're utilizing technology to be able to capture all the right data for those newly joining employees. And then as we start to move a bit further into the life cycle of an employee's journey here in Novo Nordisk, and now I start to talk a little bit more globally. You mentioned 66,000 employees around the world. I think we're a little higher than that now, but we're looking at using technology to be able to analyze all the metrics around those employees. So things like sustainable pay, pay equity, gender diversity, all of those things are using technology in a way that we would never have been able to do so 4 or 5 years ago. And then another use of technology with an external partner is even for people that leave our organization, we're able to follow up on those exit interviews and give us dashboards as to the kind of things to focus on as an employer for colleagues that have left, and to understand the reasons why they've left. I can tell you that, for example, the net promoter score that we have for folk that have left our organization is over 60. And that's compared to a pharma industry net promoter score, which is about 40%, and an industry about 20%. So I can easily look at the entire employee life cycle now through the use of technology and see where we need to improve, where we need to drive efficiencies, or where we need to create greater value.
Great. When we also talk about the manpower, we also, have heard that there is a scarcity of skilled manpower, especially in pharmaceutical industry. How this challenge can be managed, and what are the talent upskilling and, acquisition specific technologies that you use at pharma?
Yeah, there are a number of things that help us in facing that challenge. Actually, in an organization like ours, 4,500 people, it's 17 different functions. Many of those functions, at least today, we don't have a huge scarcity of manpower to hire. But there are some of the functions where we do have more specific challenges, and one that might be a little bit of a surprise for a pharmaceutical industry company is actually medical doctors.
Yes.
Of persuading medical doctors that actually a career in pharmaceuticals is a good idea rather than working in the clinic or in the hospital is sometimes a challenge. And if we find those people, then sometimes they're not super industry ready. They don't understand the pharma
Yeah.
industry perhaps to the degree that we'd like them to. So there are a number of things that we can do. First of all, we work on strategic partnerships with universities, with institutions, with training establishments to be able to help students become industry ready, and also to open the eyes of those graduates into the kinds of careers that are available for those skills that we're looking for. The second thing we've done a lot over the last couple of years is to look at our employer brand. When I joined this organization 3 years ago, people would often confuse us with another pharmaceutical company. And so speaking to you and people like you about what Novo Nordisk is, what we stand for, and what we do really helps us with our employer brand. And then perhaps the third thing is around our recruitment process. So as you say, whilst there's not so much of a scarcity of talent for the 17 functions that we operate within, there is a competitive element between companies as to who can find that talent fastest. And again, we looked at our recruitment process and realized it was cumbersome. Actually, there were a lot of process gaps where we lost applicants to follow up. So we've really taken a very rigorous look at what our recruitment process is. We've minimized the number of interview steps that are required, and again, utilized some AI that I mentioned earlier to be able to be sure that from the day we put a job advert out to the day somebody can join us is as short as possible. By doing that, we can be sure that we're competitive in the landscape for recruitment of some of the skills that perhaps are a little more scarce.
That's fantastic. I understand that the competition is very tough, and another very important task that the CXOs manage is the change management within the organization. How do you think the role of CXOs have changed over a period of time in transforming the organizations and workforce, making themselves, the leadership, more tech savvy and the workforce also more tech savvy?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I think for people like me and my leadership team, it's a journey one has to throw oneself into. to understand how technology can really augment both our brand, the way we operate, and our employee experience. That there's a temptation, particularly folks of my age, that you get a bit scared with technology and you just want to do things the way you've always done them because that's worked for you for 20 years or more. But it's true, isn't it, that we're approaching a period now where we're going to have 5 generations of employee in the workforce. And if we
Absolutely.
as leaders don't really start to engage with how we can utilize technology across the entire value chain to be able to attract, retain, recruit those 5 generations, but also drive efficiency. As a GCC or a GBS, it's the name of the game to be an efficient value creator for the organization. And that's where technology can really play a big part. And, we're using things now with many of our functions that I never thought would have been possible just a few years ago to be able to make our operation more efficient. Now, does that mean that we'll need less people? I don't think so. Actually, for an organization like ours, it just means that the roles that people do are much more meaningful and much more value adding for a company like ours. So you're right, the CXO role changes from just kind of delivering value in terms of cash and in terms of keeping an organization legal and compliant into being a pivotal value creator for the organization on so many different dimensions.
Great. That's a fantastic answer. From change management, I want to ask you now, the focus should be on the geographies. Your company is a large company with, global presence. What are the key challenges and opportunities in managing global workforce? And specifically in pharmaceutical industry, how do you manage remote working, hybrid working, and contingent workforce?
So yeah, let me deal with the second part of that question first. Again, as a sort of traditional leader pre-COVID, we would have never have thought of people working anywhere except an office-based environment.
Yes.
Now, and particularly here in Bangalore, I feel like I have to work to earn the commute. So what we do with that is obsess with employee experience to bring people to the office when it's right and when it's appropriate. But on an overall footprint, we work on about a 50% archetype of people working from home, and home could literally be anywhere, and 50% of the time in the office. But it's not something I religiously police, but rather utilize the opportunities we have in an office environment to drive engagement, to drive collaboration, to drive excitement, to drive employee experience, so that people actually want to come when we're asking them to come. Now, when you ask about an organization operating on a global footprint, yeah, it's an interesting one. Many organizations like ours would have multiple centers for their GCCs. And actually, Novo Nordisk, until last year, we only had just this one in Bangalore. Last year, we opened up a very small center in Mexico, really to deal with US time zone critical activities. But the first sort of strategy that I would employ here, and I would get all our leaders to employ, is to establish trust and transparent communication. Though that it sounds very easy, but that allows you to really operate across cultures and across languages. If we trust each other and if we communicate clearly, when I say I can do it, I do it. When I say I can't do it, I can't do it. When I
Absolutely.
say I'll deliver it, and vice versa. The second thing is cultural sensitivity.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that I've worked in 5 countries, including places like Japan. So I have a bit of a student of of interpersonal culture, and being able to educate our colleagues that, the Danish directness versus the kind of indirectness that we work with in Asia is something to navigate, but we need to learn and understand each other's culture before we can really collaborate beautifully. And then perhaps the last two things are somewhat generic, but also interesting cultural dimensions. We've invested a lot in employee experience here, and we've done a lot of things that other countries or parts of Novo Nordisk would never even dream of, but they were right for India. So as a leader, having the empowerment to set a set of benefits and a set of employee experiences that are very specific to the locality that I work in, might be different for Japan, might be different for Thailand, and certainly different for Denmark, but it's very, very important. So having that flexibility. And similarly, the recognition and appreciation. You know that, in certain parts of the world, individual recognition is the most important, whereas in other cultures, group recognition is the most important.
Absolutely.
And as a leader, having the sensitivity to be able to operate within those different strategies is one of the things that we also spend some time with. And then finally, something that Novo Nordisk globally is obsessed with, and that is being sure that every employee, wherever they are in the world, understands the purpose of our company, of driving change and improving the lives of patients. So whatever function you do, whether it's HR operations, accounts payable, supply chain planning, marketing, finance, understanding that you're close to the purpose allows us to get across cultural and language barriers, because that's the same globally.
That's fantastic. That's very, very insightful. And we never knew that so much is being done there. When you're talking about the purpose that the employees drive from the work that they are doing and also the employee experiences, I want to talk about the employee well-being now. That what steps Novo Nordisk has taken to ensure that employees can balance their personal and professional lives in a very holistic manner.
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of things that spring to mind. The first I already mentioned, and that's the hybrid working environment. That for me is a benefit which I think is right for the employees, and it's also right for the company. We've heard in India a number of large corporations, forcing people back to the office. I don't believe as a leader of the organization, I don't believe that's a really smart thing to do, not in this time and not with these generations of employees. So understanding what works for employees is important. Second thing is that we've spent quite a lot of time looking at specific policies. For example, are we the best of the best in our health insurance? Are we the best of the best in our life insurance? How can we engage families into that so that your parents or your in-laws are also engaged in our insurance? That makes employees a little bit stickier perhaps to us, because it's a benefit for the entire family. The other thing we've done is we launched a program for mothers, for ladies who are going on maternity leave. What we discovered when we researched this 2 or 3 years ago is that in India, ladies who take the maternity leave, there was a large proportion of them that never came back to work, because the family said it was more important to care for the child. So how could we not necessarily force everybody, but actually give a scenario where people could kind of do the best of both worlds? And we came up, it was actually an employee who suggested this program, our Flamingo program, which, if you wish, the moment you're pregnant, you can be allocated what we call an amigo, so a buddy, a friend who's been through this before. So whilst you're still working and you're working with your pregnancy development also, you've got somebody close to you who you can understand how you feel and all that, and how the fears you may have. You can also avail yourself of specific transportation options if you don't want to get in a cab with 6 other people. When you go on maternity leave, there's an ability for us to communicate with you voluntarily through a portal that allows you to get the key important information about the company without having to log onto your laptop and get 2,000 emails and get stressed about them. Then when you come back to work, you've also got the ability to, for the first 5 years, to take an extended maternity break. You've also got the right to extended types of flexible working options, as well as a number of other benefits, including mother's room, nursing room, etc., that exist here in the office. So really working on end-to-end stuff in terms of employee benefits. And then the final thing, which has been very popular here, is a flexible benefits program. So back to what I was saying about, up to 5 generations of employees, all those generations have different kinds of needs. Yeah. I might need my eyeglasses replacing every 2 years, but a different employee might want a sports club membership, and somebody else might want to invest in extra health insurance for their family. And rather than continually having a large shopping list of benefits, we created a flexible program where the employee has an amount of money every year that they can deploy individually to their individual needs. There's a framework around it and a reimbursement framework. But what that means is that if you're a something employee and want a sports club membership, you can do that. Whereas if you're a 40-something employee and want extra health insurance for your parents or your double sets of parents or your kids, you can do that. And by having these flexible policies that are targeted towards individual employees' needs, again, gives us the opportunity to really support as many people as possible.
Fantastic, John. That was very, very nice to know. One last question I have, that what do you see is the future of pharmaceutical industry in the next 5 years with the increased use of technology, specifically AI, machine learning, virtual reality, and automation, and all these things, especially in the people management landscape?
Yeah, thank you. It's a super exciting time for the pharmaceutical industry as technology becomes incredibly powerful. I think as a purpose-led pharmaceutical company with patients at the center of everything, what we can be sure now is that the time from concept of a molecule through to market will be shorter, safer, and more targeted for our patients in the future. So using AI and machine learning to do drug discovery before we even get to the laboratory will allow us to be able to get to market faster. Utilizing technology in the development phase will allow us to be sure that we're targeting therapies to the right patients. And then when it comes to an organization like this, again, using technology across the entire portfolio of activities we do allows us to be more efficient, to be higher quality, to do less repetitive, laborious, mundane work, and much more interesting work, which adds value to the company and adds value to the patients.
Fantastic, John. Thank you so much for your time today. It was lovely talking to you, and we look forward to meet you again in person maybe sometime soon. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
very
time.
much. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Thanks for the
Thank you.
opportunity. Bye-bye.